Well, hello, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. So, I know on my lives I've been doing a lot of music games and things, but tonight is the night we're going to talk about some true crime. In which case? The Delphi case. There is a new motion, or well, not the motion, a decision. Hey, Frugal's in the house. So glad to see you here. So Judge Gull, who's presiding over the case of Richard Allen, has made a judgment, and so we're going to look over that. I also have the original filing that she was making her judgment about, so we can refer to that. And so just in case somebody is watching this and they don't know about this case, let me give you a little summary. So back in February of 2017, there were two young ladies, about 13 years old, named Abby and Libby. And they went for a hike in the afternoon. They went missing. They were found the next day. Their bodies were found the next day. They had been murdered. And so for the next 5 years, police investigated various people. And finally, let's see, if it's 2024 now, it would have been in 2022, the end of 2022, a man named Richard Allen, who was a resident of Delphi, was arrested and charged with the murders. Now, all this time, nobody knows anything about the crime scene. They don't know anything about how the girls were killed, whether or not they had been assaulted. Everything, all the details had been kept under wraps by the police. But they released some sketches, they released some video and audio of who they were looking for. And nobody really paid much attention until the arrest. And then the court proceedings became a circus. In particular, September of last year, the defense filed a motion for a Franks hearing, which included a memorandum. So all of that information kind of becomes known as the Franks memo. And what they did with that Franks memo is they described the crime scene. They described a lot of information that they had received during discovery that led them to believe, and some people think that they were just making up a story to try and get Richard Allen off, and he's guilty. And other people are saying, oh, whoa, wait a minute. Now that we have all this new information, we think he's innocent. And there's a lot of people that are just, you know what, we don't have all the information, so I can't say whether he's guilty or innocent. But it seems that there's a lot of bias by the judge. The judge's name is Francis, the letter C, Gull. So not the bird seagull, but Francis C. Gull. That's how she goes. But we'll just call her Judge Gull. There's so much detail and goings on of the court that I'm not going over in this video. I've got a true crime playlist. So there's videos of mine, there's videos of plenty of other people. If you're interested in this case and you want to know more about it. So that's probably about as quick a summary as I can give you. So let me share with you. We'll look at her judgment that she gave first. Her order. All right, let me see. Can you guys see this? Absolutely. Excellent. So, order or judgment of the court. So, Francis C. Gull says, the court, having had the state's motion in limine. Now, a motion in limine is basically the prosecution was asking that certain evidence be inadmissible. Okay, pretty much everything that makes up the defense's case. As you'll see, she mentions this is only like one page, and like I said, we'll go over the original motion in limine. I have it open and ready to share with you. So the court, having had the state's motion in limine under advisement, following a hearing conducted on August 1st, 2024, and having heard and considered the evidence, admitted exhibits, arguments of counsel, defendant's supplemental submission regarding state's motion in limine filed August 13th, 2024, and the state's response to the defendant's memorandum of law filed August 26, 2024. Okay, so that's everything regarding that hearing that they had, right? Grants paragraphs 1 through 6 over defendant's objection, and grants paragraphs 8 through 12 over defendant's objection. Now, what happened to 7? Okay, well, as it relates to paragraph 7, the burden is on the defendant to show a nexus, connection between Odinism, cult or ritualistic killing, Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Johnny Messer, Elvis Fields, Ned Smith, Rod Abrams, Kegan Kline, Jerry Klein, Ron Logan, and the murders of the 2 victims. You got to show a connection. Follow me on this next part. The case law is quite clear that the nexus must not be based on speculation, conjecture, rumors, or hearsay, but rather on admissible evidence, not on discovery, not on evidence collected, but on admissible evidence. And what did she just say prior to this? That everything listed in paragraphs 1 through 6 and 8 through 12 will be inadmissible. So if they don't have any of that, which we'll reference, all of that is inadmissible. She said that first. Well, now where's the connection? The court finds the defense has failed to produce admissible evidence demonstrating a nexus between everything we just mentioned. Therefore, the court grants paragraph 7 of the state's motion in limine over the defendant's objection. So basically, she gave the prosecution everything they asked for. The court will not permit the evidence submitted by the defense in support of their arguments regarding third-party perpetrators in the trial of this cause, as the probative value of such evidence is greatly outweighed by the confusion of the issues and its potential to mislead the jury. The court will allow that evidence to support an offer of proof at the trial if one is made by counsel. So the defense can, offer a proof, and then she will decide yes or no at the trial. But she's very limited in the days of the trial. So if you start doing a lot of offers of proof, that will run out the time clock of the trial, right? The jury selection will commence in Allen Superior Court October 14th, 2024, with trial commencing in Carroll Circuit Court concluding November 15th, 2024. Now, I don't know if that includes the jury deliberations. Wouldn't that be interesting if they went to deliberate on the 14th and they haven't reached a decision? What is she going to tell them? Like, I don't know. That I don't know. She's really kind of crazy on all this. All righty. So let's look at the motion in limine. What are these paragraphs 1 through 12? So let's see, I think I have to actually stop that one. Oops. And then is that the right one? Let me check. Yes, okay. Motion in limine. So yes, the prosecutor is asking for all of this to be inadmissible. They cannot, all of this cannot be mentioned in the presence of the jury during voir dire. That's when you're deciding who you want to have as a jury or exclude as a jury member, right? Opening argument, the presentation of evidence, and the closing argument. Any and all references to the following, either directly or indirectly, all right? Any comments about counsel for the state, that would be Nick McClellan, that constitutes a personal attack on the attorney for the state or comments on the role of the state's attorney. Okay, so no personal attacks on Nicholas McClellan. Slick Nick, as a lot of people refer to him. Number 2, any comment which constitutes the personal opinion of defense counsel about any evidence, witness, outcome, or penalty. Okay, so if the defense is saying something that could be considered to be an opinion about evidence, a witness, outcome, or a penalty, then they can't say anything that's an opinion. For instance, defense counsel cannot vouch for the truthfulness or competency of any of the state's witnesses, including police officers or any of his own witnesses. So basically, if somebody's lying, you cannot call them out on it if it sounds like an opinion. All right. Number 3, any innuendo or inference that is not supported by admissible evidence. Well, we just learned what's not admissible. So if they bring up any of the third-party defense about a ritualistic sacrifice, basically, any innuendo or inference, right, then they cannot even make an inference. Number 4, any attempt to indoctrinate the jury during voir dire by exposing the jury to substantive issue in the case. Okay, do not attempt to indoctrinate the jury during voir dire when you're asking them questions to choose whether or not they're going to be picked for the jury. Number 5, any attempt during voir dire to have the jury prejudge the credibility of a witness. Actually, those two are kind of normal. 6, any hypothetical questions that includes facts that are not in evidence. So you can have something that's a fact, but if that fact is not in evidence, or questions that are not helpful to who? Helpful to the state's case is what he's talking about. So if you ask a hypothetical question, then you're in trouble. Number 7, any attempt to introduce evidence of a third-party motive that is not relevant and or the probative value is outweighed by unfair prejudice, confusion of the issues, or has the potential to mislead the jury in violation of Rule 401. And so basically she upheld this, right? But let me, if you go back to my other video when this first came out and I'm reading through it, I'm pretty much saying every time he says this, because he repeats this a lot, the unfair prejudice, confusion of the issues, or has the potential to mislead the jury, right? He's saying anything that would be reasonable doubt, right? If you're going to bring up anything that's going to mess up my case and cause reasonable doubt, you can't say it. Before any such evidence may be permitted, the defense must show some connection, that nexus, between the third party and the crime. Further, it must be a direct connection based on admissible evidence. Now, none of the evidence is admissible anymore, right? And not founded in hearsay, speculation, rumors, conjecture, or theory following the law. They cite, I don't read the citations of the law. You can go to a lawyer YouTuber to hear about all that stuff. The state requests the order in limine to include, but not be limited to. So order in limine to limit what can be said during trial, right? So, and she granted it. So all of these things cannot be inferred, or, you know, all those words we were just using. Odinism, cult or ritualistic killing, Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Johnny Messer, Elvis Fields, Ned Smith, Rod Abrams, Keegan Klein, Jerry Klein, and Ron Logan. Now, if you're new to this case, you don't, all those names and things don't mean anything to you. You can go back and look at some of my videos. You can look at some other people's videos to understand that in the Frank's memo, all of this is laid out. All right. And there's good reason, you know, based on the state's discovery that they gave. There were police officers investigating all of these, right? Different people, you know, the Kleins were catfishing. Jennifer, Gull is out of line. Oh, for sure. I mean, it's like, so basically you cannot have a defense. It's like what she's saying, you know. Jennifer in the house. Thank you so much for joining. All right. So number 8, what's number 8? So now we get into a lot of the discovery evidence that I was just mentioning, some specific things. And so what are those? Any reference to an investigation conducted by Todd Click, along with any reports or investigative materials from Todd Click that is not relevant or is used for the purpose of confusing the issues or has the potential to mislead the jury in violation of Rule 401. Or in other words, that might bring about reasonable doubt. My pleasure. Yes. So the burden is on the opponent to show why it's relevant. Relevant evidence may be excluded if its probative value is substantially outweighed by its prejudicial effect. Evidence may be excluded if it confuses the issues. He's just giving all the citations for those things. And so Todd Click investigated the ritualistic killing and the possible involvement of what is being called Odinists. Various people in this, they call themselves heathen, they call themselves Asatru, they call themselves Odinists. Different people call themselves different things, but it's kind of just all lumped under Odinism in here. So yeah, Todd Click spent 3 years investigating with 2 other officers. So there were 3 officers that were investigating this. And one of them got shot outside his, outside an office, right? I think it was an FBI office. And once he got shot and killed, then the other 2, retired or changed jobs or whatever. You know, they totally backed off. They got the message to drop it. You know, so yeah, she's granted. Number 8, nothing by Todd Click. 9, any reference to geofencing and or any testimony from Kevin Horan about geofencing or the findings from any geofence search that is not relevant or is for the purpose of confusing the issues or has the potential to mislead the jury, right? That may cause reasonable doubt. Relevant. Okay, this is all just the same thing, just citing the case law. So what is the geofencing? Different from pings, so don't confuse it with pings off of cell towers. Geofencing is different, and it goes off of apps that can connect. And so there was a geofencing report in the case, excuse me, in the case that was handed over in discovery. The defense didn't make this up. Okay, this report showed 3 cell phones within 60 to 100 feet. I believe, not yards, I believe it's feet, 60 to 100 feet. Could be yards, but I think it's feet of the area where the girls' bodies were found at the time that the police, that law enforcement say that the murders happened. There are 3 phones. So number 1, it's more because police are saying that Richard Allen acted on his own. And he's the only killer. So number 1, there's more than one killer. Number 2, there are witnesses that might have seen something. Number 3, they might have seen that there was nothing. Right? And we'll get into the timeline issue once we're done reading the motion in Lemonade. I do want to go over, especially now, the importance of the timeline. So number 10, any reference to any prior bad acts or acts of any witnesses that plan to testify at the trial that is not relevant to what the defendant is on trial for. Okay, so there are some witnesses, maybe even law enforcement, that had prior bad acts, and but if those prior bad acts, like let's say arson or drugs or something like that, it's not directly relevant to what the defendant is on trial for, the murders of the girls, then that can't be brought up to show that the witness is not credible. Number 11, any reference to how the files were labeled that were handed over to the defense as part of the information and discovery provided to defense counsel by the state that are not relevant and would cause reasonable doubt. Right? So why would they do that? Well, apparently with all these different times that they handed over discovery, everything in the files in terabytes and terabytes were like mislabeled and not labeled, and just a big mess. It was a huge mess. So, and did they do that on purpose? Were they trying to hide things so that the defense wouldn't find them? You know, defense can't mention anything about how things were. And plus, you know what? They might have had some things labeled Odinists. You know, what were when they called the professor who was an expert in Odinism to say, hey, these sticks that are laying on the body, are they is this evident of of runes and a possible sacrifice or anything? Maybe they had a label about that. Well, no, can't mention anything that's going to lead lead to that, lead to a ritual killing. 12, any reference to any PowerPoints provided by the state as executive briefs involving any person or persons that were investigated by law enforcement as part of the 6-year investigation into the murder of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Shouldn't that be the murders of, anyway, that are not relevant and would like cause reasonable doubt? So yeah, what kind of PowerPoints had they put together to explain this or explain that? I mean, the geofencing might have been in a PowerPoint, but they already covered that. What other things did they have PowerPoints about that, you know, can't reference any PowerPoints that were made by the state in the case? Well, there you go. And that's all of the items in the motion of limine that Judge Gull has now said she cannot be used, right? So let's talk about the timeline. Jennifer says Gull paid for an Odinism expert and now she can't testify. You know, how much of this case, how much money is this case spent of taxpayer money, you know, with all this, you know, 6 years of investigation and all this trial prep and everything, and can't use it, you know, and you can only use evidence that would convict Richard Allen. If it doesn't point toward him doing it, then you can't use it. I mean, that's like the definition of defense, right? I mean, sure, there are times when things need to be inadmissible that are completely unrelated, but this situation, no. So timeline. This is, you know what the defense has? They have the timeline. So if the prosecution, let's go, what's the prosecution's timeline? They say the girls were dropped off in the afternoon, like, you know, between 1 and 2, say. They go to this old railroad trellis, which is known as the Monon High Bridge. And they're on this bridge. One of the girls' phone, I believe it was Libby's phone, was found at the crime scene. And on it, there was video of a man walking toward them. And they just show us a clip. And there's speculation as to whether or not that clip has been altered. But there's a clip that we've been shown that's a video, that's a 40-second long video on the phone. We see 2 seconds, maybe, and we get some audio. They released like another 2 seconds of audio that happened later. So what the prosecution is saying happened is this man was walking towards them. This man is now known as Bridge Guy, walking towards the girls. At some point, he pulls out a gun, and it sounds like maybe that's in the video, but they haven't shown it to us. But they would show it in trial, I guess. So he pulls out a gun. He tells them to go down the hill. Girls, down the hill. That's the audio that they gave us. And if they went down the hill, so the prosecution is saying that Bridge Guy, all right, whoever he is, whether he's Richard Allen or somebody else, that Bridge Guy forced the girls down the hill, across the creek, and up on the other side, where he then killed them immediately. And by 3:30, so an hour and a half later, there's a witness who's driving on the road, who sees a man who, in the PCA, the probable cause affidavit, it said that this witness says she saw a man, muddy and bloody, walking on the road. Okay, and she drives on. but she spotted this guy. Now, the defense's Frank's memo says that she never said bloody. She only said muddy. All right. You decide. We're going with the prosecution's timeline. So that's why they say between like 2 p.m. and 3:30 p.m., the murders happen. So every alibi of anybody that they checked out is in that hour and a half time frame. What they did not do was check midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. None of those times were checked. If somebody had an alibi for that hour and a half, they were considered not a suspect. All right. So what the defense, if they believe Richard Allen is innocent and now they can't mention Odinism, what they can mention is that they believe that the girls weren't killed at that time, in that hour and a half, but that they were killed in the middle of the night. And present what they can without saying any of those things which have now been declared inadmissible. I'm not a lawyer, but I don't see any other angle. I'm a journalist, a spin doctor. I'm really good at spinning things, for the media. And that's the only spin I see that they still have available for them. Because if they can prove, because all of the evidence that they have that the prosecution has is about Richard Allen being there in the afternoon. So if they can prove that the girls were not killed in the afternoon, you don't have to mention Odinism. You don't have to mention anybody else that might have done it. You just have to say that they weren't killed then. And it did come out in these recent hearings that there was no time of death listed by the coroner or the medical examiner, which is a really, really, really it's sloppy, because there's no reason why, if they were found within 24 hours of less than 24 hours of going missing, I think that I'm pretty sure, and I've done videos on this before. All right. There are ways to narrow down the time as far as like a 10 to 12 hour difference. They can say that's a big enough difference that they could say, yeah, the death was here or the death was here. Now, if you're trying to say 30 minutes, okay, no, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between 30 minutes. But you can tell the difference between 10 hours when you've found the bodies within less than 24 hours. For sure. And they didn't do, you have to collect particular data, in order to be able to do that. And if that data wasn't collected, then there's no proof. And maybe that was on purpose, because police knew. I don't know. But the idea, the defense's timeline is that the girls were taken down the hill. They were moved someplace, because after 40 seconds, there's no more video. They were kept someplace. And then somewhere between, let's say, midnight and 3, probably around 2, they were brought back to that location in order to be sacrificed. Or at least one of them was to be sacrificed, and the other one was just collateral damage. That's that. Any questions by anybody? It's kind of all I have to say about it. I've got thoughts, I guess, but on this particular topic, that's That's it. Any question? There's not much else new. I haven't really been doing a lot of true crime because there hasn't been a lot new. This was new. So it's like, yeah, we need to talk about this, which we did for the last 34 minutes. So alrighty then. If you're new to my channel, then please check out some of the, sometimes, a lot of what I've been doing lately is like, hey, let's just take a break. You watch all these other creators, you get on overload of all this true crime information. So let's just take a break. So on Sundays, I do crossword puzzles now. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, I also do live streams. And I've been doing some music games, like music trivia games. Well, name that song kind of things. I'm going to do some name that TV show kind of ones. So I might do, let's say Tuesday is music and Wednesday is TV show, or maybe Thursday be general trivia or something. Just if you subscribe to the channel and you put on the notifications, then you'll see that when it happens. But this is generally my time. So I look forward to seeing you again. I hope this was helpful. Leave some comments below if you're watching this on replay. I'd love to know what you think. And like and subscribe. So I'll see you next time.